Hello. In this video, which is going to be the first in a short series of videos, I'm going to take a look at how you can contribute to the documentation on docs.chocolatey.org. So what I'm looking at is this. So this is our documentation website, which is hosted on docs.chocolatey.org. So if you haven't seen the documentation site recently, it has recently been overhauled. Steph and our team has done an amazing job in terms of applying a consistent style across all of our websites. It's got dark theme and a light theme that's been enabled. We've adopted Algolia as the search engine. So if you need to search for something specific, Algolia does a really good job in terms of bringing that information to the forefront. But the site itself is written or is created using a open source project called Static. So Static is a project by Dave Glick, and what it does is it takes a set of input files and applies some logic that you've got really full control over, and it generates a static website at the end of it. And the end result is what is displayed here. So this site is hosted on Github Pages, and it's all driven from a central repository, which is just github.com/chocolatey/docs. So if you wanted to get involved in helping with this, then you absolutely can, and we would welcome any help that you wanted to offer. Now, in terms of getting started and in terms of contributing, just a couple of things. If you're wanting to make some wholesale modifications to the documentation site, maybe to restructure pages or add information that you think is missing or change information that you think is wrong, what I would ask is that before you attempt to make any of those changes, I would encourage you to create an issue on the GitHub site. So at least then we have some information about the kind of change that you're wanting to make. We can get involved in maybe helping you understand what the requirements are in terms of making that change, as well as making sure that the change is ultimately going to be merged in. What we don't want you to do is run off and do a bunch of work and then have that information or that work not be actually merged into the site. I wouldn't want to waste your time or hours without having that initial discussion or upfront information sharing about the site. Now, having said that, if if what you're making is a one character change because it's a typo, then I'm not going to say that we need to have an issue for that. Maybe just put some additional information in the actual pull request that you ultimately create on the site. Now, speaking about pull requests, the one thing that I would say is that any work that you want to do on the site should be done on a fork of the repository, and ideally all the changes that you are making should be done on a branch from that fork. And then a pull request from that branch into the master branch on this repository. So that just allows us that if there are changes required or additional things need to be added, doing the work from a fork on a branch makes it much easier to bring those suggestions into the PR so that it can ultimately be merged in. So that's kind of a high level overview. What I'm going to do in the next couple of videos is I'm going to make suggestions about how you can make contributions, and they'll range from making a quick typo change just through the GitHub user interface to a more involved change that might involve changing multiple files at the same time, to taking all of the code from the site, from the GitHub repository, and bringing it locally so that you can preview the site locally. And then finally, how you can make use of a relatively new system called GitHub Code Spaces that would allow you to do all of the work in the browser whilst also still being able to preview the site as well to make sure that your changes have taken effect. So that's going to be the next few videos in this series. So stay tuned if you're interested in seeing those. But ahead of that, if you are making changes to the documentation site for Chocolatey, I really appreciate it. So feel free to reach out if you've got any questions about any of this. Thank you very much.